Hello again, Diane here. I don't know if you recall, but a couple of weeks back, or maybe a couple of months back, I was listing projects that I wanted to get done in 2019, and this was one of them. It's called Fanny the Featherweight cover. I do have a Singer Featherweight that I want to have a cover for, and this is a pattern, a kit actually. It was designed by Christy Ryan for Robert Kaufman Fabrics, and they put out a panel which has two featherweight, pictures of two featherweights for the front and the back, and there's some Singer fabric that will go along the top here, along the top to make this cute little cover. There's also an additional piece of fabric that will do this bottom area that writes out the Singer logo. So it's been a little while since I got to this project, but I'm at that spot now. I actually opened up all my Singer machines upstairs in the kitchen over the last week, and I've got them all tuned up and oiled and ready to go, so I want a cover for my featherweight. So here's what I'm doing. So the first step is, before you do anything, of course you're going to be cutting out the covers and cutting out this and making binding out of the other fabric, and it's going to be a quick project. But what's taken me a little while to get my head around it is I have to quilt this little thing, and I didn't want to quilt it on my domestic, so what I did today was I put it on my quilting frame. I've got the handy quilter, and I'm down the other end of this 10-foot frame, and you'll notice I've got it set up somewhat the way I would a regular quilt. However, the fabric isn't very long. So let me show you. I have the bottom fabric, which is a Singer print. That's face up, right side down, because that's going to be the back of the quilted fabric. This is the front of the quilted fabric. And I've pretty much pinned it to this take-up, and I've put the bottom piece is secured to this bar, the belly bar. However, I'm floating the batting, and I'm floating the quilt top because it's so small. I just want to be able to probably quilt all this area. I'm just going to do a meandering, quilt all this area, move it forward, and then quilt the red area, and we'll be done. So I think I'll get going now. I've already brought up my bobbin and put my needle back down so I can just go. I'll quilt for a little bit and turn it off so you don't have to watch the whole thing. And like I said, I'm just going to be doing a meandering. I also do not want to go too close to the back, because if I go too far over this black line, I will be sewing to my leader cloth, and I do not want to quilt the leader cloth naturally. So this is basically what I do, just making all little puzzle pieces to secure the back to the front of the fabric. So let me take a little break here and turn this off, and I'll show you this when it's complete. Okay, first pass is done. Let's see if I can zoom in any closer so you can see the stippling. Oops. There it is. Basically just a bunch of puzzle pieces. So I did about 3/4 of the way down. Now I'm going to advance. I'm going to advance the fabric so that I can do the rest of it. And hopefully this is going to work. I mean, every time I quilt something like this, it's always new to me as to what I will actually do, because it's just a small piece of fabric. That's why it's probably easier to take out your domestic and use it, but I practice more on the long arm, so my stippling's better on the long arm than it is on a domestic. So what I'm going to do, I don't know if you can see the whole, you might see me, I don't know if you'll see me detaching this, but I ended up fastening these elastic clamps. So we're going to wind this up. Let's see how well this works. I don't know what's going to happen when it's time to, for the bottom fabric. Oh yeah, just unclipped. So I'm hoping that the batting is going to hold it. You know what? I think it will. You know what I think I will do? I think I will baste the bottom. Let me just smooth it all out. Because it doesn't have to be tight to quilt it. It just has to be supported somehow. And I will put the elastic clamps to hold this down. I will baste the bottom first. And then I'll continue with the stippling because I only have less than half to go. Okay, I'll show you when it's done. Well, here it is. It's completely quilted now. I ran into a couple of difficulties, of course. Even a small project, you can run into trouble. And one of them being, I ran out of thread, bobbin thread, when I had about, less than the width of my hand to do right there. But we wound another bobbin and we got that straightened out. So here's the quilting. I don't know if you can really see it well on the, you can see it more on the picture side rather than on the, we can see it a bit. Let me show you, I'll show you the back side. You can see the quilting, and I haven't really shown you the back fabric yet. The back fabric's really cute. And there's all the quilting. And the Singer pot, I don't know if you can tell, it's actually metallic looking. The new improved Singer, easy to use, easy to learn, easy to buy. So there it is. It is quilted. So now the instructions say the next step would be to cut out each picture panel of the featherweight, making sure that you cut with an eighth of an eighth. I might cut a quarter of an inch and just do my usual quarter of an inch seam. And then I'll show you that step when I get to that. So here we go. Okay, so here we are. Next step for the pattern. Let's see what it says. We've quilted the top, we've quilted the backing. You didn't really get a good look at the backing. That's what it looks like quilted. And the first thing it does tell you is to read through all the instructions before beginning. All the seam allowances are a quarter of an inch. Press the seam allowances open. Okay. And a good piece of advice, which they give you, is remember to measure twice, cut once. Okay. Quilt the fabric before you go. We've quilted this portion of the fabric. We have the two sewing machines, the back and front covers. And we also had the top. This is the top. It's going to be the top of the sewing machine cover, which you can see is quilted with all the metallic gold Singer logo. And then the back is all the same fabric, of course, that I already showed you. Is that upside down? No. A lot of gold in here. Wherever it says Singer, they kind of did it in gold. Okay. So the first thing it's telling us to do is to cut out the two featherweight pictures, leaving a quarter of an eighth of an inch outside the black line. Be sure to curve the top corners. So, an eighth of an inch. I can measure that. Yes, you'll randomly hear me throwing things off the table. Accidentally, of course. Okay, an eighth of an inch. If I measure, where's my hands? Go over here. Okay, eighth of an inch is very small. I think I might be cutting it more like a quarter of an inch. Let me find some scissors. There's a good pair of scissors I would like to use for cutting. Oh, mystery. One moment. There they are. Okay, got a good pair. Usually orange handles are a good pair. Orange handles, good pair. Yellow handles, cut most everything. Try to make it color. Oh, what is this? Oh, just lint. Okay, so I have to cut. What they recommended is 1/8 of an inch, so that the 1/4 of an inch would be along the black cutting line. Well, I'm probably going to cut 1/4 of an inch out because I always like to have more than what I might possibly need. Alright, let me get this cut and I'll be right back to show you the sizes. Okay, I have the 2 pieces cut out. Let me show you that. Here are the front and backs of the sewing machine design. Put this back a little. Hang on. Okay. So here are my 2 pieces. I also took the big long strip, which was already quilted. It was a full yard by 9 inches. I cut it in half because this is going to be the center strip. The reason they have you cut it in half is because you're going to bind this portion. Oh, look at that. You're going to bind this. You're going to join it and bind it. And that's going to serve as the handle for your sewing machine cover. Now, because I have these cut out and not joined yet, I thought a smart thing to do would be to trace the size of this onto a piece of parchment paper and make myself a pattern, because I have 3 other singers upstairs that I should make covers for. They won't be as fancy as the featherweight, but I only have 1 featherweight. I'll use some quilted fabric and make covers for my other machines. Basically, this is the only shape I need. I just said cut 2 quilted pieces for the front and back, and then cut an additional 9 by 18 inch strip, cut in half for the center strip. So that's what's going on there. So now it's a matter of stitching these together and binding. I'll show you that in a minute. Before I begin construction of the actual panels, the next step I saw in the directions was to cut up this piece of fabric which has all the Singer logo, the black and gold Singer logo that will be used for binding. There it is. So I have to cut out 2-inch pieces here, the one that has the Singer on it. Let's see, where am I here? 2 inches. 2 inches, stitch them all together for a total of 55 inches for that binding. Then I'll be left with this section, which is it's 1 1/4, so I'm going to make it 1 1/2. So I'll be cutting to either side of this. So basically you're just slicing up this whole piece of black, which is only it's only 12 inches. So you got a 12 inch in length, and you've got width of fabric this way. So that's what I'm going to do first. I'll cut all these strips up and get it ready for the binding. Then it's going to be real quick to just assemble the whole piece. In this section of the video, I'm showing you that I am going to join the two center pieces, wrong sides together, and join them with a 1/4 inch seam. Generally you don't stitch this way, wrong sides together, but this is so that the binding will be on the outside. And there's the seam. Okay, once that seam is in place, you'll see that I'm going to ensure that both sides of the seam were caught up. Sometimes with quilted materials, you think you have both sides, but you don't. So I'm just checking, and I'm going to do it twice. And probably, let's see if I trim it up. So we sew that reinforced seam Now we have the seam with the raw edges up on the top of the cover. So what we're going to do now is bind that. I'm doing a quick trim here so that it'll be nice and even and easier to bind. Okay. Once you have it squared away and it's nice and straight, you take your binding. This was the one that doesn't have the Singer logo. It just has the it's got the little, it's the smaller size, it's the smaller width of binding. As you can see, I've joined all those to make a 90-inch piece. Those are the ones I cut off that larger black piece of fabric. And all I'm doing is going to bind it. But what I'm going to do is I'm taking that first, I'm not up to that yet. Ultimately, the binding's going to go on and be top stitched, but I never put my binding on in one shot. I always sew it on one side by opening up that first 1/4 of an inch, which was folded and pressed into that binding. And I'm going to stitch that on so that I know I have a good foundation. Let's see this. It's just a short amount of fabric. It takes no time to put that binding on first. Putting the raw edges together. And I'm just stitching on the pressed in fold line for the binding. So there you see, we've got that seam. We've got the binding attached now. I backstitched on the front end of the seam. And that's just going to fold over. And I'm just going to top stitch it on in black. I'm using black thread here so it doesn't show. You don't even see the stitching once it's stitched, because it's a pretty busy piece of fabric. It's not like it's just a plain fabric. So I'm pulling it over. And I don't know if I'm going to clip it. Yeah, I'm going to use the clips. Wonder clips are great for this because the pins can make it get all bumpy if you, I don't know if they're called wonder clips. They're called fabric clips, quilting clips. I use those clips a lot. When they first came out, they were very expensive. But now, if you go to Amazon.com and just search for quilting clips, wonder clips, I think they're called, you can buy a bunch for a very, very reasonable price. It's worth it. It's very worth it for binding quilts and for, if you sew any kind of, I make little notions bags, and I might make them with clear vinyl on one side. And you can't pin vinyl because the holes remain in forever. So you have to clip vinyl when you're going to sew it into a project. So you'll see I didn't like the edge. I wanted to bring that piece of binding a little bit further than the edge so that I would ensure that it completely covers the edge. With quilting, even though you have it pinned in place and you think it's a good match, you always have to have a little extra on your ends because the quilting takes up more fabric. The quilted fabric will take up more of your binding than you expect. So we've got that all in place. Just slip it onto the machine. I don't know why this is taking so long for me to get in there. There we go. And we're just going to top stitch that. And because it's already stitched on the other side, you don't have to worry about catching the other side. Just stitch it in place. I backstitched again, and there we go. Removing the clips as you go. It's very convenient to use the clips. Another tip is one side of the clip is flat and the other side is bumpy. So always put your flat side down because it makes it real easy to just press on it and pull it out. Remove it while you're stitching. Oh, zipper placement too. I use it for zipper placement in the bags that I make because the clips hold the zippers nicely. Putting pins in zippers can make them bumpy in the end, make your zipper not lay flat. Here we are. Okay, so now we have this bound. Very simple, very quick, and it's a nice binding. You'll notice that it doesn't lay flat. That is your handle for lifting up the cover to take it, to put it on and off your featherweight. So there we have it. Okay, so we have one side stitched. You can see it's already holding up its shape. Pretty good. And this is going to be, they want you to use this piece as a little handle for grabbing the top on and off your machine. This is going to be bound also, but before we do that, we're putting the other side on. So I marked the center, the pin, and put it, I folded it, and this was the center, and I put that on this seam. And now I'm going to try to show you how we get this curve. I've got a, see it's straight there, a straight piece of fabric moving on to this curved piece of fabric. What's nice when it's quilted, it's very easily, and this is on a curve, so it's already that bias piece of the, take some clips. So just put your raw edges together and put a clip, and then again do the same thing, just a little at a time. The raw edges together. Got a clip in my hand here. And put a clip. I'm doing this with the camera in between us. Okay. I'm not seeing what I'm doing with my hands. I'm just seeing it in the camera to see if it looks right to you. So again, edges together. Get a clip. Clip it. Curved edge. Let me get one more clip and show you how this looks. Okay, so can you see, as you're doing it, as long as you keep those edges together, the same amount of fabric there, you can see it. It makes a nice curve, and it's going to curve out when you need it to. Reminds me of a toaster cover. It's a sewing machine cover. Okay, so I'm going to pin the rest of it. I'll do the other side too. It probably looks not too easy, but fact of the matter is, if you do a little at a time, what you have to do is actually do it. Just make sure the edge of your curve is against that flat edge. See, and put a pin. I should have an endless supply of pins in my hands. I don't know how this looks. Alright, now I can see it better. Hopefully you can see it. Edges together. Clip. I don't care if there's a lot of clips, that's alright. Edge together right there. Pull up a few clips. Let's do this and this. So you're just kind of easing it in. Edges together. Oops. Now see how that edge, it's because I was trying to do it. Let me put it there and see if I can get above the camera. There we go. Those edges together. Just together. Another clip. And there you have that curve again. Now the rest is easy because it's just all flat to flat. Okay, next step. I showed you how we curve these edges and clip them together. Well, I've just stitched the front to the middle and the back to the middle. Okay, let's throw this away. And that's what the picture looks like. It looks pretty good. So now the next step is going to be to just to bind this. This is really pretty simple because once you put the binding on, because we have that fabric in the inside, it's going to be completely finished in just these few steps. Had I known it was going to be this easy, I should have started this months ago. But like everything else, things have a way of getting put off. Let's see if I can just see if I can show you what I want to do next. What I'm going to be doing next is placing that binding. Simple enough. Hang on one moment. Okay, so this was the binding that I had to make in the beginning. I showed you about that, how we took that fabric and we made the binding for the bottom. Here, let me grab that too. We had to cut up that little piece of fabric, and this first piece was cut into 2-inch lengths. I had to get 55 inches of this. See that? 55 inches of this. 55 inches this way, and cut it at 2 inches. And then you can see all my seams. I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think that's going to be 55. Okay, there's 24, 48, and 10 will be 58. So I need 55, so I've got excess. And the way that works is that the Singer is one time right side up and then upside down and right side up. And then it's not a terrific job of matching, but I put this little piece together to save as much as I could. Sometimes it was just the end of the Singer. I mean, it should have been bigger, but I didn't fuss with it because I don't think it's really going to show. So that is going to go on the bottom. But the other piece from the scraps that were surrounding the Singer words were these. There was like this floral piece, and then the Singer logo. You can see it's the Singer logo. We're using it sideways. So I put a number of these together. These were 1.5 inches cut. It's a 1.5 inch width, and I needed 90 inches of this. So I put all of these together. And then the instructions said to turn it under 1/4 of an inch and 1/4 of an inch, so that you have, it's just shy of 1/2 inch of binding, and this is to be 1/4 of an inch seam. So what I'm going to be doing is placing this binding all along the outside edge of the front and back, stitching this on to bind the edges. Let me just show you this. So then that'll be the bound edge. And once that's all stitched on, we're going to put this piece, we'll be stitching this bottom wider Singer piece here. Well, in such a way that I'm going to be pulling down what I pressed up, stitching on the fold line so that the Singer logo will be at the bottom, just like that. Can you see that? Let's see, where am I? Here we are, take it further away. So I'm going to stitch these on, and I'll be back to show you the end result. Okay, and here it is, all done. It's on the little table, a little sewing stand. Here it is. We'll look at it more closely. Here's the bottom. Here's what I did. I made it a very small, let me come over here, very small binding on the inside. You see, I did what the instructions said, which if you buy the kit or the pattern, you'll see you fold it. This does not have any batting in it. It's just a binding. And it is complete inside and out. Oh, and of course there's a thread. There's always a thread that I forget to cut. So, I totally enjoyed it. It was a very quick sew. Here's the little featherweight. I took the acrylic stand off of it. Let's see if I can put this cover back on with one hand. You actually can, because it's pretty much holds its shape. Those curves really hold the shape well, and the fact that the fabric's quilted gives it a lot of body. So I highly recommend this fabric pattern, this fabric and pattern or kit, whichever way. Some shops are setting it up as a kit, or I've seen the fabric just for sale by the bolt in other fabric stores. So you definitely can get it. All you need is it's basically 1/3 of a yard for this and a yard for this, which contains this. So it's quite, oh, and then a yard of the Singer lining fabric. That's that. Okay, hope you enjoyed the video. Bye now and happy sewing.